order. Please rise. Please pledge the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The school board will convene to executive session tonight to consider the appointment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the body has jurisdiction or exercising responsibility under Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Part 1, Part C, to consider a physical education teacher, coach, custodian, basketball coach, superintendent evaluation, and administrative contracts. Are there any members in the audience that want to speak to something other than an agenda item? Hearing none, are there any items anyone wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? Is there a motion then to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried, and we'll just note that there was a $500 donation from Landon Resort to the high school girls softball team and $2,498 from the Pioneer Athletic Booster Club to the track team for new poles. Do we want to move the inside thing forward? If someone wants to make a motion, we could move the item A under new business forward and allow those people from the county to address us before we continue with reports, etc.
So moved.
That's the potential partnership with Door County. There's a motion. Is there a second?
No second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then I'll let you introduce them. We'll invite the people from Door County and Insight to come forward and speak with us.
Sure. Would you like to come up front or here, or what's your?
Up front. Camera gets you.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you for amending your agenda and moving us up. My name is Ken Pavick. I'm the Door County. Along with me is our expert, Ashley DeGrave. She'll be talking to you. I thought maybe if I could, I'll just do a quick 2-minute overview of what we're trying to do globally, and then I'll let Ashley talk about the details of what we're here tonight to ask you for help. So just really quick, without getting too technical into the weeds, obviously the county is responsible for all of our emergency communications. And when I say that, that's everything related to when we call 911 and what happens after that call comes in. So whether it's the police dispatch or sheriff dispatch, fire dispatch, ambulance, anything related to that. We also have some systems that are also part of that, maybe some of the school districts that potentially come on later with this other part of the project. The big part of the story is that our system is very old, and it's actually what they call an analog. So if you would kind of go back to your TV days, you had the UHF, and then you have your channels now that are digital. So in essence, we're required to go to a digital technology. We're hoping to accomplish that by 2028. But to make that happen, we have to densify our network, which I'm sure people aren't always happy when we talk about that, but that means we have to add more communication towers to actually work with the digital technology. So with that, in the past, with our existing system, we had worked with Insight as a partner. If you go back probably about 25 years, Insight actually ran fiber up through most of the county. Actually, the fiber that's serving you here in this building was part of that partnership. We're trying to work with them to continue that partnership with this project as well. So the way the project or the technology works is we'll be adding more towers. Some of those towers will rely on fiber. A lot of those will also work off what we call microwave technology. So with that, Ashley will go through some of the details and some of the information in the packet, but in short, what we're trying to do is we're looking for those key locations. And obviously from our standpoint, we're trying to minimize the cost for this project for everyone involved. For each site, we're looking probably about $1 million to $1.5 million when you throw in the towers plus all the technology related to it. Total cost estimated for the upgrade to the new system is anywhere from about $20 to $24 million for us as a county, just to make this all come together. So anything that we can do to try to, one, keep those costs down initially, but also long-term is what we're hoping to do. So the reason we're here tonight, and I'll turn it over to Ashley, but we're hoping to get a small piece of property from you to use for a site. I know you can't decide that tonight. I guess the only thing we're looking for tonight is, are you willing to have that discussion with us? We would go through and do our due diligence in terms of all the review to make sure it's compatible. And then if it would be compatible, it's my understanding we'd come back in fall when it's officially to be part of your agenda, and we'd have that discussion then to see if we can move forward with that. But just to get into a little bit of the technical stuff, I'll turn it over to Ashley, and she'll give you the more details for that.
Awesome. All right. Well, like Ken said, thank you for allowing us all the opportunity to come and talk. I did put a couple of things in your packet that we can go through, but like he said, our current system end of life's in 2028, and that was identified to us in about 2020 with our consultant, which was Len Keenan at that time. He announced that he was going to be retiring, so we selected a new vendor through an RFP process. So Omnicom Consulting Group out of Florida is who currently we're working with on this whole plan. So the plan has been submitted to our CATS committee, which is Communications Advisory Subcommittee, Technical Committee. It's comprised of people from our Sheriff's Department, EMS, other communications experts. So they're all vested parties and very knowledgeable in the system. We're not necessarily radio tower experts. So they've reviewed this plan, they've selected the system that they feel will work best for us, and then selected the locations of the towers. So the plan that, and the map is in here, if you want to take a peek at that. So the plan that we've come up with would get each municipality in our county to a 95% coverage. The typical standard is 95% for a county, so we've enhanced that a little bit more because of the areas that our public safety has identified as problem areas, which will be all of those red boxes on that map. So any of those outlined is what our public safety officers have said they've had issues with in the past. So in order to get those areas covered and each municipality covered, we have to add more towers, like Ken said. So we'll be adding, it would be 2 co-locates, which would be on existing towers that already, are there. I believe they're both, one I think is an site one, and then potentially vertical bridge. And then we would be adding 6 new locations. So on that map, the purple are the existing sites that are already in our infrastructure, and then the red ones would be ones that would be added with this project to get us to that coverage percentage. And then the second map that's in there would be the specific coverage of this site that we would be looking at. The original location was a town parcel on Dunes, I think it was on Haverly. Yep, but that was a former, well, one was a former landfill, which wasn't the issue, but prior to that it was a DNR site, and the DNR has very specific restrictions, and we can't build a site there, so that parcel was unfortunately out. So then your school parcel would be the next one. So this coverage map would reflect if the tower was placed on the parcel on Dunn Road, and we would be looking at a 230-foot tower to get us the coverage that we need in that area. And then I just threw 2 other maps in there. One is just zoomed out to show you where that parcel was, and then a more zoomed in one with the wetlands areas, because those likely would be the areas that we would need to avoid if we were able to partner with you guys on this. So our preferred method would be a purchase of a portion of that parcel to put the tower up. Realistically, a tower needs like 100 by 100 foot parcel. They don't need a lot for the structure and the tower itself. So I think part of the initial stage of this process would be evaluating where on that parcel would be best, and then doing some archaeological, geological studies to make sure there's no Indian burial grounds or anything, that would restrict us from putting any sites up there. From what the research that I've done, the Sevastopol Township falls under the county zoning as far as permitting and zoning. And that is a prime ag parcel, so that is excluded from any restriction. So there wouldn't be any minimum purchase parcel necessary, so we could take whatever minimum you would be interested in allowing us to. So again, I think today we're just hoping for the opportunity to discuss the partnership and then potentially investigate that parcel a little bit farther to see where our options would lie.
Just out of curiosity, are there towers that are in our district that we do not have access to?
Like other,
I'm thinking of like the tower on Hill and Bellman.
so in the initial plan that OCG reviewed, they reviewed any existing sites already to see if they were gonna give us enough coverage in our areas. So they looked at any that were already here to see. And so, I mean, there's possibilities, but if you put one there, it might not overlap with the coverage that we have somewhere else. So he strategically placed them throughout to give us that overlapping coverage.
I mean, that's an existing tower right now.
Yes. But that one we're not on. And
You're not on that?
No. We have one in Jacksonport, would be the next closest one, and Sunnyside.
So just for, and again, just for full disclosure, the way we're trying to work with our partnership Ed site, what we're trying to do is have where the county's actually acquiring the parcel, then Insight, through a subsidiary, it's called Vertical Bridge, would actually build the tower. Then Insight can use the tower. So one of the benefits obviously would be the 5G coverage. They would use that. But then we get to place our equipment on the tower and they maintain it. For us, it's kind of the win-win because we're not in the tower business and we own a few towers and they are expensive to maintain. So if we can avoid owning a tower, that is our goal. So again, we'd own the piece of land. They would put up the tower, maintain the tower for us. We'd have our equipment on it, and that's how the partnership would be. So the one thing too that we'd be more than willing to discuss this because it was brought up at the property committee would be, after 50 years the tower comes down or there's new technology or something like that, what happens to that parcel? If we buy it, we're more than willing to put it, as part of the purchase agreement that it would revert back or do some type of, first right of refusal or something like that, because obviously if we don't have a need for it for communications, obviously it belongs back to the school. So, that's obviously in terms of the partnership, we're more than willing to look at that, so.
How much land are you looking for?
About 1,000 square feet, but it depends on where it'd be placed. It'd be.
You don't have, because I don't see a location on this map of where it's intended to be placed.
No, we have not selected a specific area on the parcel yet.
Ideally, just for disturbance, it'd be nice to have it closer to the road, and then that way we don't need an access easement. So if we could have something that's somewhat out towards the front, but also compatible with what you think you would prefer to see, we're willing to have that discussion as well. But without having to have a road go further back in, run the power back, and all that kind of stuff. So more towards the front, and again, like a 100 by 100 piece of property.
I would add too, I think, it's good to recognize, so this land we got very minimally from a citizen. So I think it's a good idea to work with the county. And I think that when your group gets into it, I think the cost should be, it's between taxpayers, so that should be, we should think about what we paid for this. And I think it's very important in your last comment that at some point in the future, whenever you stop needing that, and that may never happen, right? But if it ever does, and this is out of respect to the family that donated to the school, I think we should have that fall back to us. We aren't voting on that today, but I think honestly this school should make this very low-cost transition of property because it's for an emergency services thing. And respecting the land, how we got it and what it serves after you do your surveys and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's important to have it come back to the school if you were ever not needed, and that only clause is get all the stuff off of it and then it falls back to that school area. But that's just a comment to think about. So I think it's worth looking into.
Are we going to discuss this here tonight, or move this forward to another agenda, another day?
Well, I think, is anyone against it? Because I think we'd like to get an
Well,
action
so
to move forward.
my thought always is, don't sell land because you don't know what you want to do with your land in the future. And this is at our Echo land, so how does the tower affect the Echo land?
I think the
You're probably
part,
wondering
yeah,
that.
part of the property, is probably going to be, probably located on Pond Road, the road that goes out to the settling ponds. And, you know, most of our usage of the Eco Reserve is on the other side of the creek, the Geisel Creek. You know, I don't know what our relationship is with the town of Sevastopol as far as those drainage or those settling ponds are. But, I mean, I think it would have minimal impact on our activities in the Eco Reserve.
And just for clarity, what they're seeking tonight is just the approval to have a conversation about whether or not the tower placement is a placement that meets their criteria, and that's something that we would be interested in having a conversation in the future, once we establish where the placement would be, what the impact to the Eco Lab, if there's going to be an impact to the Eco Lab. All of that information would be gathered between now and then it would have to go on a board agenda in October, early November, because the annual meeting has to state that the district could possibly sell land prior to actually taking action on it. So this gives us good timing to be able to investigate whether or not this isn't a green light, we're going to do it. This is a green light that we're engaging in a conversation about the potential partnership.
A minor clarification, beyond conversation, you guys are going to evaluate the land and you do any perk tests or what do you got to do to make sure you put foundation there? So I mean, I think, well, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but it is authorizing the study and analysis of that land, which is more than conversation. However, we are making a final decision to your point. So I think it's just a good clarification.
Yeah, I guess the right thing that we'd ask, I mean, if it was like if you guys felt like a hard no, we'd just like to know it now, because even the evaluation's probably about $20,000 to $25,000. So if there's no interest, we'd rather spend that money elsewhere. So, but again, if we can go through and do due diligence, if you're open to it, we can come to terms. I mean, that, it's a partnership, right? So we all do it in good faith is what we're trying to do. But we just want to make sure there's nothing that would be a hard no to you for right now.
It's a benefit for the well-being of the county. The only thing I would ask that a motion also say that if they're going to do a study, that if the ground is disturbed, if they dig perk holes or whatever, that it be restored.
Sure.
It's, you think that's funny? I've
Well,
got lots of properties where there's holes and falling in.
It's a very minimal invasive type of work.
I don't know that.
So that wouldn't be a big clause to add.
You know, because there's no guy wires or anything else involved in it. It's a freestanding tower. And actually, 100 feet by 100 feet. The only consideration you would need is the height of it. And if, I don't know if you go through a neighborhood, I mean, there's land, but there are residences there. If you canvass those people and see what they're, that might.
No matter where we go, we have that issue, and no one ever likes a tower. But
There's only something in that, you know, like.
at the end of the day, we still got to put together the
This is a lot
network.
smaller than those towers that would Jackson Ford and Conway Harbor.
Well, there's different ones. There's several that are well above 300 feet that are the radio communication ones, but this is 230.
Our biggest one currently is on Sunny Slope, and that one's like, 400. Yeah, this would be 230, so yes.
This is what guide wires up is. You get guide wires over 100 feet. When we put our tower up at our house, it said, we go over 100 feet.
I think that's changed a little
Has it
bit.
changed?
Yeah, because
This is freestanding.
Yeah, in the plans that we've discussed with our consultant, all of the ones that we're looking at are freestanding. So they just,
Okay.
I think they're constructed a little bit different than they used to be.
So this, as you put the proposals together, is purchasing a must, or is there a long-term dollar a year type, not just remember, like a dollar a year lease for 75 years and anything that's negotiated at that time, or the clause and it reverts back to
I guess, that'd be a secondary position for us. That's something we would discuss as long as you're also, again, aware of the transparency that we're not putting up the tower. So it's actually, would be the Ensight or vertical bridge that's actually putting up the tower, maintaining it. So I guess it would change if you want to do I guess we could have them also sit as part of it. So we're more than willing to discuss that if you guys don't want to do it, I
The
guess.
issue with the schools is it's property that we would have issued. Sometimes the property would return back to the school. So if you do a lease, a long-term lease at $1 a year, under $5 a year, with a 50 years, 75 years, with ability to renegotiate them, then that always, that's where the writing can be that it returns back to us.
Why would that be a less desirable position?
But then you're also doing an agreement with Ensight, because it's their equipment. You would be doing it with the county.
We're doing it with the county. The county has the agreement with us.
I just asked him why that would be a less desirable position for them.
I guess we're willing to go on it. This becomes a little bit more complicated in terms of the agreement. I guess, again, what we're trying to be transparent on is with them doing a tower, a lot of communities think, well, then now we're going to turn this into rental income and we're going to get, a lot of those leases can be very expensive in terms of that, and that just changed the whole deal in terms of what we're doing with our partnership with them. So if you're willing to entertain that as part of the partnership and you guys just want to maintain that and allow the lease to happen that way, we could also entertain that as part of the discussion, so. It's not a revenue stream for us, and I guess I don't want to imply that it would be a revenue stream for you either.
So are we a hard no, or are we, we'll think about it?
Would you like a motion to take it back?
Yeah.
I move that we move forward with the guide, study and exploration of establishing a tower on the Ecolab property with cooperation with Door County Board.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
My only comment to your legal thing is, I think a sale with it captured in the deed of sale or a lease, both can result in the property coming back to the school at an agreed to thing. So that's the only thing is if it's cleaner one way, we can still accomplish the same means, but that's for future discussion.
Sure, we're willing to discuss that.
And I just wanted to add one comment as we were talking about the areas of that parcel. We would likely go out there with Edge Consulting who does those evaluations. And if there was somebody from the school that would be willing or interested to have that walkthrough to kind of give us an idea of where those eco labs are, where we would like to avoid, or if there was a better area that you guys felt comfortable with, it would probably be helpful to have you there during those discussions. And then we're testing the areas that are preferred for you guys as well.
You have that motion, Haley? I just want to make sure you have it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you for allowing
guys
me to
very
speak.
much.
Thank you.
It's my
Keep us safe.
political way.
Hey, I would like to say, you think this, you have to build the ambulance station.
I'll add that note.
I'm trying, it's a negotiation point.
Nothing could be worse than a little hardware though.
We will move then to the administrative reports and report on the high school, middle school data. I know. By Mr. Schaefer.
All right. Well, thank you, Sevastopol School Board, for the opportunity to speak today. When putting this presentation together, I had it in about 5 hours, but you're in luck. I nailed it down. It should be only an hour and a half today, so we should be set to go. Just kidding. But thank you for this opportunity. It's truly an honor to be here and share with you all the wonderful things, many good things and challenges that we also have at both middle school, high school, and what we're working towards and the goals that we have. So let me get started right away. We're going to talk a little bit about our student achievement. As we know, the student achievement through our tests have changed a little bit as it relates to the Wisconsin State Report Card, but the exams that we use are the Wisconsin Forward Exam, the Dynamic Learning Map, Pre-ACT, ACT, and then the Access testing for our ELL students. Just a couple of rankings, School Digger, the rankings over the year from the fall of 2022, 23, 24. Our high school has gone from 25th to 431 schools to 12th to 78, where our middle school has gone 36 to 28 to 12. In comparison to the other districts in Door County, in comparison for our complete school district, Sevastopol, as you can see, we went from 22 to 12 to 26, and we were in the 94th percentile in comparison to our other Door County schools, which is something for our district to be incredibly proud of. I don't know if you can see this data well enough, so I'll just kind of explain it, but this is our ACT scores with our economically disadvantaged students comparatively to our non-economic disadvantage. Non-economic disadvantage is on the right, our economic disadvantage is on the left. Our average scores, as you can see, we have a little work there to do where we continue to work with those students to improve our non-academic students to kind of get those numbers up and close the gaps. Obviously, as in education, we want to close the gaps where there are separations. Our ACT scores in comparison to the state have been good even across the board, whether it's economic disadvantage or not. So we're very, proud of the ACT score, but as a growth area, we really want to get those gaps to be able to close those gaps.
I just asked you, the economic disadvantaged students, is that clearly determined by the free and reduced lunch program?
That's how we identify. So you can have families also who don't fill that out that we don't know. So, when you're looking at the data, it can be a little skewed on that. Our attendance rate, this is our, comparatively, our middle school is in the light pink and our high school is in the purple. I was recently at the AWSA Principals Convention and somebody said that the gold standard for attendance in middle school and high school is 90%. Personally, I think that's, I don't know why that would be a gold standard, but when you look at it from this group, all right, so our non-economic disadvantage, our attendance percentage rates are pretty good. The last bar graph there where you're looking at our middle school attendance rate on average, 97.89%, high school 94%. Our numbers are, in the upper 90 percentile each year on the data that's shown, which is a good thing in comparison to our average attendance compared, if you look around the state, a lot of schools really struggle with attendance, so that's been really good, that's a plus. Our economic disadvantaged students still, and I think there's a lot to attribute that to. We have a lot of really good programs in place through our ELL program. I also think our district, the special thing with providing, our transportation for every student, that's available. I think that plays a big role in all of this. But those numbers as well. The only one that, that's concerning here is, in 2023, our high school numbers are pretty close to that 90%. So, and I think if we look at this year, there's a lot of illnesses and stuff going on this year, so that can change too. There's a lot of factors, obviously, that affect attendance, so we have to look at that. But obviously, our goal is to be a school where we want students excited to be here and that we're making them feel like this is a place they want to be. You guys have seen this already, so I don't really need to talk much about this, and we know about the change in the performance level or achievement, but our overall scores across the board. Just some celebrations. Our high school, they scored at the top 95.7 in the state, where our middle school 97.6%, so that's really good. Our middle school student growth score was very high, at 96.3, excellent score. And high school, this is an area that we're working on. Our growth was stagnant from last year to this year. And it's something that, as you'll see later in the presentation, is something we're working really hard to make that change. And we've actually started that well before this data came in. Last year, we already started to make those moves. And then, of course,
how do they measure student growth?
If you give me a chance, I'll explain how we do that, because I actually will define that a little bit, okay? So But in our report card, the growth is based off of a 3-year period, right? So looking at the forward exam and their previous scores is one way that we look at it, okay? And how they do from year to year. Our middle school, as we know, I think the biggest thing, and not focusing here on the achievement, focusing on the growth, right? So our language arts is at 92.6 percentile for growth. And in mathematics, our school in middle school is in the 100 percentile for growth. Now that doesn't mean that 100% of students grew. It just means that the ranking, the percentile, the easiest way that I can explain that, we're at 100 percentile, which means our growth is as high as it possibly can be. It's excellent, which is obviously a good question is, okay, why is there a growth score? And there's so many things also to look at when we're looking at the difference in growth between high school and middle school. One of the differences, right, is the tests they take. High school, they take the pre-ACT, ACT. We do the forward exam. That's one thing. Another thing, our middle school, our core teachers have a common planning time where they're able to meet during the school day, actually have conversation, talk about our students, talk about the students who are struggling, put interventions in place, discuss where students need to be placed. That's a nice advantage that they have. We don't have that same opportunity right now at the high school level. The other thing when you're looking at, I'm sorry if you can't see that, it's kind of here at the bottom, but when you're looking at our targeted group outcomes, that's our bottom 25% students. So when you're looking at growth of those students at a 99.3, those are pretty big highlights for our middle school. So growth has been a really, really strong area for our middle school. But we have really solid interventions in place. We are very invasive with that. We have multiple tiers to our interventions in ELA. And then the system that's been in place for a long time, long before I got here. So credit to previous administration and the staff for what they did in putting together opportunities to discuss all of our students and constantly meeting to talk about that to make sure that we are providing everything that we can for our students. And I know sometimes we even have like arguments where parents don't want their child in an intervention. They want them to have other academic opportunities, and our teachers want the intervention opportunities. So we are constantly pushing for that and fighting for our students to help them in their growth. And then when you look at high school, when you look at our targeted group population, and as we said, our growth scores, right now, we're not as high as what we would like. Our achievement is still very, very good, but once again, this is an area that we're focusing on. Our bottom, our target group outcome group, on track to graduate, 97.9%, which is really good. Our absenteeism is pretty good. And then our growth numbers, we just really have to work on it, which we're in the process of doing. And then our on track to graduation, I'd really like to see that score improve. So those are some growth areas for our high school. This chart might look somewhat similar to what Mr. Hilt shared with you at the elementary level, but I'm just sharing the data after COVID. And once again, we look at our economically disadvantaged students versus all students, and the state is in black. And you can see here for our middle school ELA, we have a really nice trend line going up and starting to almost, cross, intersect, or connect with our the whole student body. In middle school math, we also have a very nice trend line with our economically disadvantaged students after COVID, which is, when Mr. Hiltz had talked about how Sevastopol has done a really good job of getting students back on track to where we were prior to COVID. I think the data here at our middle school has shown that in comparative to the state as well. Then when you look at the high school, once again, our numbers are pretty good. We had a little bit, a drop off right here, and then we are starting to work our way back. So that trend line, I would anticipate with the direction that we're going and what we have in place and what we're doing, will be another gradual increase. But over this 4-year period, we had a couple of different snafus, and with math, same thing. It's really kind of a plateau. And then another thing to look at with our, another factor when you're talking about, which is why I don't really like to compare our high school to middle school a lot, right? Our high school math, we've had some changes in staffing, where at the middle school, we've had a concrete core group. And you know how that is, any sports team, any organization, you have a concrete group of people who are on one shared mission, vision, purpose, they're going to have success. When you are losing staff, putting new staff in, and trying to get everybody on that page, that there's a time element to that.
So on that graph there, so am I right to assume the final graph, 23.4, our economically disadvantaged students are outperforming the state average?
Yep. Just that.
So that's
And we did that back in 2021 when this area here, we just had a little drop.
that's a good one.
It's another positive. Yeah, absolutely.
The definition of growth, is that where like they take the test scores for a class, and then the next year, that same class the next year? I'm just wondering how you measured growth, and I don't know if you answered that, I missed it. Is that, so the growth is, somehow they're measuring where they were, and then the school did some education, and then they tested again, and they grew beyond where they were per the normal. Is that what growth is?
Yes. Yeah, comparing their improvement, and Mrs. Margaret,
Can I
you
add
jump
to
in. Yeah.
something? Growth is a system, it takes 3 years, right? It's individually based. It's not a class. It's who's in the class, and it's compared to same age peers. So it's not Sevastopol students versus Sevastopol students. It's what would be typical growth for a same age peer. So that's what they're taking the average of 3 years for that. And they want to see you close the gap in their growth areas. That's based on whatever test they're taking. That could be the forward exam, it could be the pre-ACT, and then getting to the ACT. So it's not students compared in this school, it's nationally and compared to age and how they're growing.
So if I can just piggyback on that, so you have a student in 8th grade that has a scale score of 432. They take every student in the state of Wisconsin and look at that 432 scale score and compare it. And based off of that next year's score, where did our student as a composite fall in that growth? So if a 432 went to a 570 and we went to a 580, then we exceeded that growth of that average student.
And that increases our report card score on growth.
These numbers, I think the big point was, these numbers are before the superintendent of education decided to change this score.
Yes, but the last report card is where the data was but the hoop was
That's
dropped.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll explain more on growth and how we do it also with the STAR test.
Yeah, no, this helped, thank you.
Okay, good, all right. So one of the biggest things that we're doing district-wide is we're using a universal diagnostic, STAR, right? This is because we wanted some continuity and consistency when we're looking at student data. For a while there, we had math testing, some were doing STAR testing, and we had a little bit of mix. So now we're all using the same diagnostic, which also helps us see student growth through that assessment tool as well. So we're all consistent. It focuses on ELA and math, and it's one of 3 data points used to determine if a student requires intervention. The other 2 would be in-class performance and teacher observation of how the student performs to determine whether or not a student needs intervention. And we use the data from what we're getting from the STAR assessment. We're using that data to help us on how we can individualize and support student learning, help to have more targeted, focused instruction that focuses on the student's gap in the classroom and or in the interventions. It can be used multiple. So when we have students who are on a watch list versus who are in great need of intervention, we're looking at through this assessment or this diagnostic where there are some gaps. And the other great thing, having staff collaboration about our target population of students. So one of the things that we've done is we've created, we have teachers participating in an assessment project through the CISA 7. Kim Pencil has come a couple of times. We created a data team that actually went down and got extra training in Green Bay so they could be part of the leadership team. Some people would call that a principal's cabinet, but these staff members that have attended that have increased their training in how we can do deeper dive into unit planning, making sure that our our unit plans are organized in a way that we are giving our students a good, rigorous experience, that we're finding out what they know, that we're using formative and summative assessments to help us guide their instruction, changing our depth of knowledge questions, making sure there's a variety of depth of knowledge questions in our assessments that we do with students. And this is new, and the goal is to get our staff to collaborate, focus on providing meaningful instruction that is based around the best instructional practices. And that's, and our overall goal, of course, is to increase student achievement and growth.
So this is like a database that puts out these reports or data, is that right? Go ahead.
Yeah, the state report card.
The reason I ask,
Yeah.
just piqued my interest. So you're looking at the ones that aren't succeeding, but I'm curious if this data or the algorithm could show a top performing student, which wouldn't be a focus area. But if all of a sudden that individual starts dropping down, to me that would identify maybe some mental health issues, someone should say pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious how far into the algorithms they've gone with this, because that's not something you're looking for, but the data would tell you. If you
Yes.
had something looking at that, you know,
Well,
embedded AI thing, do you know that right away to say, hey, is this just a bad snowstorm, or is there some family challenges that maybe the school could be aware of? Because we are trying to focus on that more. It was just neat data you're saying, that's how I look at data. So I may not do that yet, but keep it on the radar.
well, you'll see, because I'm going to show you an example of a star, like a chart that identifies students. So I won't click on the student's name because I'll preserve their anonymity. But you'll see that it also does focus on high achieving students, but low growth, and high achievement, high growth. Okay, what's the difference? We just had this staff meeting with our high school staff yesterday, and we were talking about that. What are we doing with our high achieving, low growth students, and what are we doing with our low achieving, low growth? So we just started on that
Sure,
side.
there's different priorities, I get that. It's
Yeah.
just neat, it's neat, go ahead, I'll keep
Okay.
listening.
So one of the things we talked about yesterday in our staff meeting is, what do we know about student growth at Sevastopol High School? Because we were focusing on our high school, and it should have said middle school as well, because we did it with our middle school, they were all together. And how do we know? How do we really know? Same questions that you guys are asking, right? So how do we know our students are growing? How are you measuring that in your classroom? What are you doing as teachers right now to make sure that you are noticing growth within your own class outside of the diagnostic? Because the diagnostic gives it to you, but what are you doing there? And when do we actually discuss student growth? When does it happen? So that led to one of our first official big PLCs yesterday, which I thought went pretty well for our first one. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about student growth percentiles. So hopefully it makes sense, and I have an example to share with you, which kind of aligns what we were saying. Just wanted to get to it. But anyway, so student growth percentiles, they're calculated with 2 data points, right? Which is why we often use them in our interim assessments, midway through a unit, midway through our STAR assessment. But they make student growth comparisons fair by comparing the growth of students who start in academically similar places. We were talking about how students are compared, not just within Sevastopol, right? So that's the definition there. So their growth is in comparison to other students who are in the same position that they are. So like students, I believe was the phrase that we used. So here's a random student. This is not one of our students, but a random student, Krista, had a scale score in the beginning of 742 was her scaled score. Now that scaled score, when they did an interim assessment on her, she's got scored a 775, which means she grew more than 42% of her academic peers who started at the same level and who we were comparing. Does that make sense? So then, if you just, in case you're not familiar with scale score, I just wanted to give you the definition of that. But so the scaled score is based on the difficulty of questions and the number of correct answers. When students are taking the STAR assessment, they are timed. They have to respond to questions quickly, and as they are answering questions correct, the problems get tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher. And that's why sometimes the students get really frustrated because some of the content is beyond what they have learned, but it's just to test them to see where they're at, and what they're able to answer correctly. So those scaled scores are useful for comparing a child's performance over time and across grades, which is exactly what we were talking about as it relates to our state assessment, or our state report card. So, and it ranges from 0 to 1400. So once again, another good definition, or a chart that I think really explains that well, is, the average growth of students are right here with similar starting scores. So if you look at last year's assessment score, and all those students who are in the same area are all grouped together, and then this individual student score here, well, there would be a percentile given to that, right? What percentile they're in, their ranking percentile comparatively. And you can see this child grew at a faster rate, and obviously this one is a little bit closer, so it's a slower rate of growth. So when you have a chart like this and you're like, okay, so why did student B, why are they not growing as much as student A? What's the difference? What's happening? What factors are including that? What are we doing with our instructional practices? What differentiation are we doing? What accommodations are we making? What challenges does child A have versus child B? I mean, there's a lot of factors to consider. And this is, I think, what I was trying to allude to. When you look at the STAR assessment, it's broken up into 4 quadrants. Okay, and when it's broken into 4 quadrants, you can see the students in your class where they're at. If we have, obviously as a principal, anybody that was in the low achievement, low growth, that's a high priority for us, right? We want that growth. But that does not mean that the people in this quadrant aren't a high priority, because if you're a high achieving student and we're not growing you, that is still a big concern, right? We have to make sure that all those quadrants we're taking a look at, and ideally, that upper quadrant, high achievement, high growth, if we could have all of our little counters in that corner, that would be amazing. So that's why when we're talking about these things, there's always room for growth. So here's a STAR growth. This is just an example. And when I have a chance to show you what ours looks like, but you can see here, if this is your classroom, if we were looking at a teacher's STAR data, we might be having some real conversations, right? We were like, what the heck? You got almost half your students are sitting down here in our low achievement, low growth. What's happening in your room? What's going on, right? So that's not one of our teachers. I just want you to know that. That was a random example. So, but if it's okay with you, right here I just have one of our groups, and I cannot hit those counters, but you can see this is all of our students. Obviously you can see the grade level, but you can see here, this quadrant, not so much. Low growth, higher achievement. This is where we want our students. This would be like a typical, our average growth. And then you can see over there, many, many students. Now that you're like, okay, show us another grade. Here's our, am I allowed to say the grade level? All right, so our current freshman, okay? Current freshman coming in from 8th grade, right? So this is where the data really becomes interesting. You can see, we don't have a lot of low growth, low achievement. We have quite a few of the high achievement, low growth. And then we have a plethora over here and a good amount sitting in that middle. So what do we do? We want to focus on who these students are, right? Our goal is to shift them. And if we can shift this group by an interim assessment or into their sophomore year or junior year, looking at a 3-year plan of growth. But if we're looking at this grade level group and I compare this chart to next year and it looks exactly the same, then we really have some problems, right? So,
what's the lower quadrant? What's below the data one? What are you measuring then? This is low growth.
4 squares. 4 quadrants.
I understand. Okay. So if we were in the bottom of this first
So this
Low
quadrant,
right there is none. What does that mean?
low growth,
And what?
low growth, they're not growing, and they're not achieving a lot. So those are students who are either probably in intervention classrooms, they're receiving extra support services, they might be in an academic intervention classroom.
So those above the line are low growth, high achievement.
Yeah. So those are the students that we have that are coming to us, that they're doing well, but we're not getting them above that mark. So even though their achievement score is high, we're not taking them to a higher level, getting them out of there where if they're in here, we could just shift them to the regular growth expectations, we'd be sitting pretty good. We look at do another class in high school. So it's the next class up. As you can see, things start to shift up, right? So we started these assessments last year, but so for this, different students though, keep that in mind, a lot of different things like that. But so once again, we have some of those students who are right on the borderline of going from low achievement to higher achievement based off of where they fall on the scale scores. Does that help? Does that make sense a little bit?
What are the main subject areas? You got reading, you have math.
Those are the two for the STAR diagnostics.
That's the only two.
Yep.
So what do you distinguish? Because I went to school with some guys who they were low achievers, but they never were really challenged. They really were geniuses. And then when they got out of school, they became blossoms. Where do they come on these? How do you ever identify them? Or would they show up? You make up a person. Let's say, you know the type of person I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're not dummies, but they're really geniuses. But this is all boring to me. So they just don't achieve.
Well, it's a really open-ended question that's hard to answer without really knowing the student. I don't know if they're trying to trip me up, but that was a good one.
I'll throw it out, it's statistical stuff, right? So that's probably a typical growth, that's not, a typical score, because, my buddies had buddies like that too, that they just didn't do their homework, they didn't tune in, but they were smart enough to get by, so they meet your national averages, but they're not growing every year, so they're probably right in the middle, lower, I'm guessing. It's a statistical breakdown of what you're asking, right? So where would that be? So where's the person who's kind of, really, they just weren't motivated in school, so they're getting their C's, they're getting by, getting their B's and C's to get by. They're not really super growing, but they're not falling behind.
And eventually.
And then when they leave high school, they go blossom and run companies and do amazing things, Right?
I know, that's what I'm talking about.
And this is only the second year you said of this.
Right.
I'm intrigued by this data to really help assess over time and how it helps, quite frankly, people in school.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on, this is an example of, for example, one of our middle school teachers and how they use the data, how they use it with the forward exam, how they use it comparatively with the STAR assessment. There's 2 pages to this, so this is one page of students, and you can see this is their percentile, right, according to the Wisconsin State Forward Exam. The STAR exam, because some people have asked, how close is this STAR exam to producing data that's similar to our state report card, right? The difference is, in the STAR, when you're looking at their percentile rank, let's just take who this student is right here. So on the Wisconsin Forward Exam, they were in the 47th percentile, but in the STAR, they went from the 57th percentile all the way up to the 78th percentile already. But you have to remember the STAR diagnostic is nationwide. That is covering everybody who uses the STAR diagnostic. That's not limited to Wisconsin. So in honesty, when you're looking at that data, it's a little bit more watered down because it's a much bigger population than what you see with the forward exam. And then this is the second part of that group, and you don't see a lot of those yellows, and you see where they are at in the percentile. And then there's some of these beautiful numbers, 99, 96, 96. So that we are using the STAR data. We are looking to see, hey, how close is that to what we're seeing on the forward exam? Are there any missing pieces? And so when we talk about different data points, we're using not only the STAR, but we're using our forward exam as well, pre-ACT, ACT data at the high school level. So we're using multiple data points to make sure that we're tracking where our students are at and how they're doing success-wise. All right. Am I on the clock here? Am I almost done? Miss Mary? Am I down to a minute? All right, I'll go quick. So,
What you have to say to us is important.
Okay, all right.
So get it all in, please.
All right, I'm doing the best I can. We got a 5-year plan. This is my 5-year plan moving forward, and this, I think I've shared this when I first got here as part of my interview process, but my first year, wanted to really make sure we had a solid discipline policy, and then we assessed the needs, like really understanding where our school is at, where we needed to grow, what we needed to do differently. I really feel like our discipline policy, I can speak since I handled the discipline a lot. In year 3 has been the best of has been by far the best of the years as it's related to that. And anytime you implement something different and new, it does take a while. There is a process, but I'm very proud of that. And then in year 2, that was my big push was on the culture, reviewing academic practices, start looking at things that we're doing well, what we're not doing, strengthen student leadership programs. I really think that has taken off. Thank you to some unbelievable staff that have really pushed for that on our student council, NHS, Rotary, those types of leadership. Project 180, man, that far exceeded what I had envisioned, and that's not because of me at all. That's because of the unbelievable people we have in the building. Year 3, the one that we're currently in, focuses on enhancing academic achievement, and that should have also said growth. Year 4, expanding leadership and innovation. Once again, looking at creating a principals cabinet, creating leadership teams within our school to kind of help with that, empower staff, teacher leadership, more student leadership, innovation and teaching and learning, and then college and career readiness, continue to push and promote that in our school and making sure that we're giving our students every opportunity, if they want, to obtain college credit and college preparation and getting them ready for whatever career path they want. And then year 5 is wherever we're at after year 5, sustaining growth and preparing for the future. Constantly progressing, constantly moving forward, never complacent, never accepting of where we're at, pushing to make sure that we are constantly the best that Sevastopol is capable of becoming. Not only that, a couple of things that I left out is, we have now added multiple pathways for our students to graduate. We've implemented BAC. It was here before I got here, and now it's back, the GED-02 program for struggling students. And we've just come up with multiple pathways, so I'm really proud of that. And then a lot of this you've already heard, so I don't need to really go into it in depth, but we've implemented a Character Strong, a Tier 2 with Mrs. Margraf, Mrs. Melkor. That's been awesome. Our AP test scores last year, 81% of those exams were passed. We have a new ELA curriculum. Our English language students show the greatest growth in ELA on the state report card. Continuous professional development opportunities, which we're pushing. We're doing PLCs. We're doing the STAR diagnostics. We're doing adapting to a very difficult science situation and making improvements. It's not perfect, but we're doing stuff. Our average ATC score of our graduating class of last year was 23.65. This year's graduating class, 22.1. And so, very proud of where we're at, but as you can see, along with successes, we have areas of growth and improvement. Thank you for your time and attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. That was great. If anyone had questions on the G&T report, I presume you presented them to the appropriate person. Superintendent's report.
Just a real quick update. Had the opportunity to attend the annual WASD Winter Conference in January. Staying focused on the priorities in education in Wisconsin. The budgetary concerns that we have is a entity really focusing on reimbursement of our special education, increase to the per pupil, and to the revenue limit. In full disclosure to the District of Sevastopol, the only one that makes a significant difference for us is the reimbursement of the special education due to the way that our funding model is. So optimistic that we should be able to see some positive movement in that as we move forward. Attended several sessions around artificial intelligence, and I'll put a plug in for Ms. Margraf next month, we'll be talking about how we are laying the foundation in our district to meet the needs of the future with artificial intelligence and the impact on instructional design. Staffing updates you'll hear in closed session. Policy committee meeting also coming up in topics. And buildings and grounds, we've got a couple of agenda items that will move forward with that.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything, but I'm going to bring this forward at some point in the next several months. We've got an athletic hall of fame. Some schools have a friend of education award. It's probably just one person a year, and there are criteria. People can be nominated, and there would be criteria, and it could be a friend of education, or a lot of different things. So in some months going forward, I'll be bringing that proposal forward to see if we can establish that. Policy committee, do you have anything to report other than this long list of policies that we have?
You can see we've been very busy.
Okay. Building and grounds, do you have anything to report?
Oh, building grounds, maybe?
Building and grounds?
Oh. Well, one of our main topics was the tower and that subject. Hopefully, is Dan back? Dan back?
Yes, Dan is back.
Okay. So it's good to have Dan back again. And, I guess I can't. Anything else? Jeff, remember that?
Well, we talked about the PFAS that came up in the past. I think our numbers are good. We are based on the side of our school, we're doing regular water tests. So we'll keep an eye on that. We did reach out and educate our team, and Dan helped with that. And we talked to some of the local municipalities and what they're doing. So we're kind of not taking any action right now because I think we're good within our state requirements. And we're learning to see what that goes and what our tests are. But we are testing regularly, so we're good right now. That's all we got.
Mr. Schaefer took all the thunder, but I forgot to acknowledge Mr. Hills and Ms. Markroff. So Mr. Hills, do you have anything you'd like to highlight?
Thank you. Just a couple of things. The first one was a very successful literacy night last Thursday. Lots of compliments from parents and students on their way out of the building about how much they enjoyed their evening. So thank you to Deb Hurst, the ELA team, the staff, volunteers, all the people who helped put that together.
And students, right? There were
there was a number of students that helped as well from the middle school level. So thank you to all of them. And then, as long as we were talking about data, just was excited to be presented with some of the data from Mrs. Gruters that she came across about our reading scores, third grade reading proficiency, and taking a look at that. This is an outside organization that put that stuff together, and to see Sevastopol where it is very impressive. So.
Ms. Markroff.
Yeah, I have a couple things to add too. One of the things before I start is that and I don't mean to get us back on topic of Mr. Schaefer's great presentation, but when you talk about growth, the past couple of weeks we've talked about students who are economically disadvantaged, right? Growth is for every student. So I really like that you highlighted the area of high achieving and low growth, because you hit it too. One of the things that's going to improve our state report card is when every student at Sevastopol grows in a capacity. So I know we've talked about our economically disadvantaged students as well, but that's every student contributes to that growth score. So it is really important looking at that quadrant of making sure everybody's moving. So I just wanted to highlight to know that I just wanted to be clear that growth is every kiddo, not those that aren't proficient yet at the state report cards.
Rising tide raises all ships.
Correct. So growth is for every kiddo. So a couple things to add to, just an update on the civil rights data collection report. I'm making great progress, and I'm in a good position to be able to get all of that completed ahead of the schedule, which is March 7th. So I'm really, really pleased about that. Another thing that is new on sort of the pupil services, goals that we do have beginning this year and moving on, is to create a system of supports for students to have tiered levels of support for executive functioning skills. So it's not just reading and math and all that goes along with it, but there's certain skills that every student needs to possess to be a successful student. So really looking at tiers of interventions that can happen for every student in every classroom to increase their executive functioning skills in the classroom. So I'm excited to work with a team of people about that. And then finally, next week, there's a couple of us that are attending the federal funding conference, and I'm excited to go to that. My main purpose really there is to get a deeper understanding of special education funding and how that all works. And then another piece that I've been working on this year is looking at how, and working with Tasha, who's been absolutely amazing with this too, is looking how we can take advantage of high-cost reimbursements for some of those students where their services are very expensive. Right? Are we really putting as much effort and work in there to see if we can get as much reimbursement back to the district? So that has been a big area this year, and I'm excited to see our first time that we're really doing it and looking at so many different ways instead of just the typical ones, which are if there's a student that has a tuition out of district or special education transportation. There's a lot of other creative ways to save the district money. So I'm going to hopefully report good news on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything on the budget?
So you have your reports in your packet. Revenues and expenditures continue to track pretty close to where we want them to be and where we expect them to be. Our first aid came in slightly above budget, so that's a good thing. And we just keep monitoring everything as we go.
Thank you. And anything on facilities? Good. So we have this long list of second reading policies, and just for anybody looking at the agenda to the camera, we've had these, everybody's had a chance to read them, ask questions, make changes. These are now for second reading for final approval.
I only marvel at the fact we pay this company for these policies. They give us a new policy in November, and we're revising it already in February. I just think that's really strange. But if I was a company who made money off of writing policies, I guess I would be writing more policies.
A lot of that is due to what's happening in the legislative scene.
But the legislature wasn't meeting then, so this happens all the time. We had stuff that they just gave us new policy in December. They've already rewritten it in February. I just find that because of one or two words, that doesn't mean change anything. Okay? I mean, we went through all these policies are just taking his and her off.
Happy to glad.
His and her off because it's politically correct to make them. You know, you pay money for that. So
I don't disagree, but I don't know that there's
I know
a way
there's a
to.
solution, but
I disagree. I agree, but I don't know that there's a way to get around it. So, is there a motion on these policies?
I would move to approve the second reading of the policies as listed, PO 3440 through PO 7452.
second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We had our speakers, the trees for tomorrow proposal.
In your packets, you should have a proposal from the fifth grade teachers. This is for the annual trip, and it's just to seek permission because it's an overnight trip, but there will be no other changes.
Is there a motion to
I move
approve
to
trees
approve.
for tomorrow?
Excellent.
Second.
Motion and second, questions or discussion?
Do we do other trips? I think, ever since I moved to Door County, it's like we have a duty to our kids to get them off the peninsula sometimes, to see what the rest of the world is like. And do we do a lot of that? I mean, they live a very isolated, growing up here, you live a very isolated, and I remember one time a Sevastopol student we took to Minneapolis this was a long, long time ago, she was babysitting our son. We went to Dayton's in Minneapolis, walked into the department store, and she saw an elevator for the first time, and freaked out. She was 12 years old. in life.
Connections have changed a little bit since then.
In some respects.
I think that if overnight trips offer a real educational
too.
value, I think if overnight trips offer a real educational value, as this Treats for Tomorrow one does,
I agree.
it's a culture building exercise for the kids that they're valuable. But beyond that, I don't think it's our responsibility to show kids the other side of Brussels Hill. Reading,
And at the
writing,
same time,
arithmetic.
we've got the fourth graders going to Madison, we've got class that goes down to Manitowoc and takes a look at the summer rings. We've got kids that go down to Green Bay for a number of things. So they're getting out there, they're not going to Minneapolis, but.
I think we did a TAC trip in Appleton one time too.
That's all I just need to get on this other side of the Brussels.
We've got a motion in the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The high school math proposal.
Yeah, so doing a little research and kind of a change of events and things that have happened, I'll try to be as brief as possible. So the thought process is, should we, when students are taking Algebra 1 in the 8th grade, should we give them a math credit, a high school math credit, elective credit, or no credit? A lot of the schools that you see listed on my proposal, there were a few schools that do not even give any credit. All they do is when the students take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, they're on an advanced math pathway. And then so they are on track to take our higher advanced math classes as they go through. Where this is kind of becoming a problem is, we have next year's juniors who we have 3 students who want to opt out of math. That means they are no longer taking math after doing it for 2 years. And then there's been a lot of conversations with our younger students, and the thing to keep in mind, the students who are asking if they can opt out of math are our advanced performing math students. That's concerning to me as a principal because for a few reasons. Why would we want to always push for 3 years minimum of high school math? You can see some of my bullet points there, but to prepare our students for college and give them an opportunity to stand out with college applications, keep their math skills sharp with taking the ACT their junior year. 5% of the math portion on the ACT requires pre-calculus knowledge. We're putting students in an advanced math track and have a solid continuation of their math success. A few other things that aren't on there, but I'd like to add it. We continue by doing 3 years of math. Students are building strong foundation of problem solving and critical thinking skills, which I think are pretty valuable in almost any career. It opens doors for them to a wider range of college and career paths, especially if you're going to go in any of the STEM fields. And it's generally expected by most colleges for admission consideration that there are 3 years of math. And I know we're counting it as their 8th grade year, but I think it makes our students more marketable and stand out when they are applying, because they have to remember when they're applying for colleges, they are competing with other students. And then taking more advanced math courses can further enhance the student's college application profile for different majors and what they want to do. So I guess my concern is that our students are getting this high school math credit and they're seeing it as a pathway to not have to take math as long. And I don't think that was the original intent when these pathways were started many, many years ago. It was to give our students opportunity to really grow in mathematics. And so I guess what I'm proposing or presenting to the board is to consider changing that to either a no credit at all and just a movement to the advanced pathway, or an elective credit instead of a math credit, so our students would still have to continue to take 3 years of math in high school. That's the ultimate goal.
Does it limit the students in other subject areas? I mean, I know math is important for the subject area and especially in the ACT test, but I think, too, liberal arts or even in the science area, it gives students a chance to take more electives if offered in advanced AP science courses that they might not have a chance to take.
I think it's a great point. I think another thing, though, when you're considering some of those other electives, we have students in youth apprenticeship, right? So students who are leaving for youth apprenticeship, that also really impacts electives as well. I mean, so there's a couple of variables that would impact, what you're talking about. But I don't think if we made students take math for 3 years, that would be the reason for any decline. But it is a good point. It's something to consider.
Do all kids take algebra in 8th grade, or just some?
No, so that's the part, so once they're in 7th grade, Keith, they get put into 2 pathways. They get put in the advanced math pathway or the standard regular pathway. Where that becomes a big deal is when they become freshmen, the students who took Algebra 1 in 8th grade are taking geometry as freshmen. So they would be in with students who are sophomores who are on the regular math pathway. So the students who are in 8th grade that did not take Algebra 1, they're taking Algebra 1 their freshman year. The advanced track is taking geometry. Then you go to year 2, we got geometry, and then the advanced group is going to Algebra 2. So after their sophomore year, students are saying, that's enough for me, I got it. But then the goal would be for those students to get an opportunity to take pre-calc, and then if they wanted to, their senior year, they could take Calc AB. Since I've been here, we've only had 1 student qualify for Calc BC.
I think you're not doing a student a service by not having them take math to the limits of their ability and allowing them to go for a whole year without math. I'm just worried about going from, I can't imagine going a whole year without math and going into college and try to get, you're going to forget it. And math isn't just, and the reason we have math is not just to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, but it's a process of being logical. It's a logic class. It's a problem solving class. That's one of the skills you got.
What if the kid's not going to college and wants to go into a trade and changes halfway through high school?
Well, yeah, but you don't know that.
I'm just saying, what happens if
I suspect
they
the
don't
Chinese,
find it?
you know, I suspect the Chinese,
Algebra 2.
I suspect the Chinese don't let you out after 2 years of math in high school.
Just ask them.
So let's, okay, fine. But, by the way, I'm a huge advocate for math. But do we know why the 3 students are not taking math? I mean, were they comfortable? I mean, do we have issues with math programs? Have we looked into that level? I mean, so is the issue that we need to force them to take math, or they're losing their love of math? And then, so for instance, to your point, Jerry, if we change this, wouldn't it just de-incentivize kids? Why would you take Algebra 1 in 8th grade for no reason when you should take it as a freshman? So I mean, right, indirect effects of what are we really incentivizing? And so that's what I'm just curious, you know, why would I don't know the history, why did we set it up this way in the first place? And my last thing is, what's the state requirements? What are our state requirements for math? For schools? 3 years.
3 years of math. And so the students who are taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, there's not really a lot of choice there, right? That is a pathway that's been created in our middle school well before I got here, but as a track that was intended for our advanced students, math students, to have an opportunity to grow in math.
Well, no, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm talking about giving them credit.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. Is our teacher certified in algebra as a high school teacher?
He's up to 9th grade. So the short answer to that is yes, he would qualify for an Algebra 1 credit, which is why our students have been getting it.
Is there a need for another math course like statistics in high school?
Well, we have that now.
We do have probability and statistics. It's not offered every year. And then we also have NWTC math. What we're finding is our current math teacher who's teaching that has found that, you know, students are going from Algebra 1, geometry, and then to get another math credit are going to NWTC math. And the problem with NWTC math is content is between an 8th grade and a 9th grade. So actually students who are doing it that took geometry, they're taking a math where, just to be frank, the student who did really well in Algebra 1 and geometry, they could finish the NWTC class in mere weeks because they know all the material.
So is there a need for a different kind of math?
Well, that's where we have to look at like other alternatives if it's not pre-calc, but we do have probability and stats.
Right.
And
If the students don't want to take pre-calc or calc, is there something else they could take for that 3rd year in high school?
Yep. Probability and stats would be one, and we could look at other math curriculums, I suppose.
So my takeaway is your recommendation is because kids aren't taking 2 years of high school math, we need to force them to take 3 years. That's my takeaway. I'm trying to understand that motivation, or what am I missing? Is that really the summary of this? How does that affect our high school? Is that a fair question or not?
So-
I guess
It's
the
a fair
would be-
question.
Reverse the question. What's the advantage to a student who is capable, but he doesn't really know his potential yet because these are still kids? To say, oh, you're doing well in math in grade school and you're 2 years and you don't have to take it anymore. Because you don't want to. Is that the responsible adult way?
Well,
No. Is it the
Maybe
responsible
more
adult way?
interested in chemistry.
is
Huh?
this
Maybe
public,
more interested in chemistry. Maybe
But if you're going to be good in chemistry, you need math.
To a certain extent, but I can do chemistry without calculus.
Well, then if you like chemistry and you're going to go to college, you better be good in you better know some calculus too.
Well, yeah,
Start off.
college is
And you don't know that as a junior in high school.
but Jerry, I think the concern is it's hard for us, because remember, I'm a huge math head, and all my three kids did a hell of a lot of math, and they're still doing math, right? So my only point is this public school going to change requirements above the state's requirements? That's my question.
And I
Because Algebra
versus-
1 in most high schools is considered a credit, right?
No, because there's schools down here like Sturgeon Bay doesn't give credit, Gibraltar doesn't give credit, Kiwanee doesn't give high school credit for students who are,
Grade school.
if they're taking it in 8th grade. So it's not like we're doing something other schools aren't doing. Other schools are doing that because they see the value in their students continuing their math education in high school. Like I talked about, continuing to work on critical thinking and problem solving to make sure that they're sharp and ready if they go to college, that they've taken math for 3 years. It helps them on their ACT, 5% of the math portion. It requires pre-calculus knowledge. And it was originally put into place to provide opportunities for our students to continue to grow in math, not to have a path of least resistance and get out.
So your recommendation is,
My recommendation is that I would like to see us either have our students take Algebra 1 and receive either no credit or an elective credit, not a math credit.
In grade school.
In middle school, in 8th grade. So if they take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, my proposal would be that they would either get an elective high school credit or would receive no math credit, just like the other Door County schools are doing. I don't know what Southern Door does. I didn't get a response from them.
But if they take algebra as a freshman, then they receive math credit.
Right.
do they have an option not to take algebra? So, okay, so they're in 8th grade, they're great at math, you should take algebra. Do they have an option to not take algebra and just take the regular 8th grade math?
No, the way the tracking is set up through their experience through middle school, those were the two pathways, the tracks that have been established for.
We don't want to change an opportunity for someone who wants to go into the STEM field to take away Algebra 1 from me. Please don't discuss that, right? Because more people need more, but what we mandate and what I want are two different things, right? So that's what I'm, and the only thing, my question before about, and we probably don't know, is what was the algorithm at the time when somebody agreed to give them credit in 8th grade for Algebra 1? That's what I was trying to figure out. I don't know that.
It's about a 50-50 split at the national level. You've got half your high schools that give credit for the math at 8th grade, and you've got about half that don't, for the various reasons that Mr. Schaefer brought up. The biggest one of concern is when you give that credit as an 8th grader for Algebra 1, and the student stops taking math as a sophomore, and they are going post-secondary, so the percentage of population that we serve that goes post-secondary is pretty high. That's a huge gap in mathematical content as juniors and seniors if they aren't taking another alternative. And so to the conversation that I heard, I think one of the things for us to consider as we continue to move forward are what are our choices and options that could be a math science class that could also, or an electronic that has math components in it that could still get to a math credit and maintain that level of proficiency so that the student doesn't have to enter college and then is in pre-algebra or college algebra because they,
math is like riding a bike, but it does take a little bit to dust the cobwebs off.
Do we have data on it? It surprises me that kids that are targeting a post-high school and continuing their education would stop taking math. That's becoming a growing number, is that what we're saying? Because usually if you're pursuing after, you're gonna continue, you're gonna stay with it. So I'm guessing, my perception is that the ones that are stopping math is because they aren't planning, and then remember, we have lots of GED, we have lots of programs that are getting into a great tax-paying role where they're working hard, supporting their life in many ways, and so if they don't need that math, we leave that option there. But we're saying now there's a bunch of kids that want to go on to post-education, post-high school education, and they're stopping math, but then they're starting math up again 2 years later. Is that, I would believe if someone's going to go, they're going to, like my kids jumped into probability and statistics, right? They ran out, so that was the next math class. So maybe more options are good, but just.
So if you're a student here and you're good in math, you should take algebra 8th grade, okay? And let's say we don't give them credit for it. So what are my options now when I go as a freshman? What do I take? I've already taken algebra.
You have the same path, but you would still need the third credit.
I just want I know I don't get any credits in math now. So what are my options for courses now? So what do I take my freshman year? Algebra 2?
So if you took Algebra 1 and you didn't get a math credit, you would start in geometry as a freshman.
After my algebra class?
After Algebra 1 and 8th grade. So you take geometry, then you would take Algebra 2.
Okay, then I take my junior year.
So
Pre-calc or an alternative math like a probability and stats.
Okay.
Or college math.
So what's wrong with that?
So that's what we have pre-calc or
There's nothing wrong with that.
probability statistics.
That's what we should keep it.
That's what
So
we
the
wanted
three
now.
juniors opting out of math next year, is that a high number?
It's not a high, that's not
Is that a high-
abnormally
a number
but we do
higher
have a
than normal?
smaller class size. So we're talking about 3, that's a higher percentage for us with a smaller class. But what's concerning is the classes following. Our freshman group already talking about, that's where the number is getting larger.
And so you've got that, there's been a lot of conversation with younger students. They're coming into Mrs. Melkor and
Yep, when they're talking about their schedules in the future and asking, is it true that I only need, because I took Algebra 1 and got credit in 8th grade, that I only need to take 2 years of math? So it's a path of quick.
What are they thinking? Are they thinking that's not having to take that extra math class is going to improve their grade point average, or?
I think some students are a little intimidated by the word pre-calculus and what is involved with that. I know that's a challenge. I think other students are focused on, in their junior year, getting other credits and doing YA or, in the nursing program, those types of things. There's other pathways that students are doing. And a student who is going in knows that they're going to go into the trades, right? I think we have a young man who's going to be graduating early next year that wants to graduate early. He knows he's going into the trades. That particular student didn't take the next advanced math. He's in NWTC math. And I think the overall goal is just making sure that we're doing what's best for our students, right? And thinking about that. And I don't know exactly, because we can't predict the future, right? A student could say, yes, I want to go to a 4-year college, or no, I don't. And then all of a sudden it's their mid of their senior year, and they're like, no, I've changed my mind. Now I want to go to college, and they haven't taken math since their sophomore year. And now they're applying, and they're competing with other students who have taken 3 years of math in high school or taken more advanced classes. And here, in my short time here, we have many students who want to go to pretty prestigious universities. So we've had a lot of students go to really well-known universities, and I know that a lot of those universities, if you only have 2 years of math, you're competing against a large population of kids.
That's why
But I'm assuming those kids would still be taking it.
Yeah.
They're taking
They're
That's
still
an
taking
assumption,
it.
because we have, like I said, we have
We have 2 pathways. We have the advanced math pathway, and then we have the standard math pathway. So I don't know you get a choice of the 2 pathways. If you're really interested and you think you want to do math, then you take it, and it doesn't matter to them because they're going to get their 3 credits of math, and in their, freshman, junior, and freshman, sophomore, and junior year in that pathway, and the other people are gonna get it in the other pathway, right?
Those kids are also taking the ACT, which has a math
It
component.
does, it does. Now, in all transparency, like I said, with what's on the pre-ACT, 5% of that is pre-calc, but that's pretty basic, standard pre-calc knowledge. It's not the deep, sophisticated.
Right.
But still, we'd want our students, before they take the ACT, also to have to be sharp in math skills, right? To
Right.
continue to develop critical thinking, problem-solving skills. So when they take the ACT, and what does the ACT test them on, right? Math, science, and ELA.
So if we just say we're not going to give credit to 8th graders for taking algebra, you still have to take 3 years of math or problem or something. Because we're supposed to decide.
I don't know what the problem is yet, Jerry.
I don't, well,
Why are we changing, I haven't figured out what the problem, what I'm hearing, so if we make them take 3 more, what I'm hearing is if we force them into 3 years of math in high school, they might get better ACT test scores.
no, don't use the word force. We're
Well,
the adults in the
It's a
room
re-
who have been in life, and we understand that 3 years of math in high school is a benefit to you. You don't know it yet, but you will discover it at some time.
They'll still get 3 years of math.
Still get 3 years of math.
But just in 8th grade. Education
Then
is.
why don't we just move everything to 8th grade and get rid of the senior year?
Okay, let's do that.
Let's do it. I agree.
I was just trying to understand why we're making the change. I read through this and I heard them. Because we're taking away an option for some kids that, that might not need math. I would love everyone to study math forever, but that's not how it is. But I've learned that for years now, 9 years now, that we leave options for our kids. And I'm just wondering why we're taking an option away.
Since the
Just wanna make sure we're clear.
Since the U.S. reading scores has fallen down to the 30th country in the world, maybe we've given kids too many options, and maybe the adults in the room have to come back in and start saying, here are some standards that we know that you need to do if you're going to compete not in just this country, but in the world.
I would say, I think we just leave it as it is currently, and then it's on the radar, and we just evaluate it.
I would be curious to know what other kinds of math courses are being offered by other districts for a student to be able to take 3 years of math in high school. The geometry,
So
advanced
you want us to conform
algebra,
to what everybody else is doing
Course
in our
X.
scores, and they're so good.
to
And
get,
could-
without the pre-calc and the
We're
calc.
above them in everything.
And with our
but you wanna
staff, could
conform what
even
they're
add
doing.
another section of math.
Well, and obviously, maybe it's happening, our guidance counselor needs to be very well versed in why additional math is important. And so we can leave all our options the same, but they need to articulate that if you change your mind, you want to go into something, or a college, or change a more competitive college, this is going to help you. Right? Those are things, the discussion we have with kids that are listening.
I just feel like just go to textbook to be a nurse.
Those are discussions that should be
Right,
had different.
Okay, they don't know that yet. But mathematics is very important in your day-to-day operations of a nurse. Just to know how to make calculation for IVs, life and death decisions. And they don't know that in an 8th grade or freshman year and sophomore.
I don't know that this changes that, Jerry.
I think
They're still taking 3 years of math.
I think more exposure, if
Do
we
you want to
give
make
them
a
more
motion,
exposure
Jeff?
to math, it cannot be
I mean,
wrong
you had a
for anyone.
suggestion there.
I would suggest,
Make a motion.
Is there-
I would suggest, okay, I move that we accept the recommendation that we don't give credit for 8th grade math,
8th grade algebra.
8th grade algebra.
Is there a second to that? That we would not give credit?
As the other schools in the area do the same thing. They don't give credit for 8th grade algebra.
I would like to add to that we look at a third-year option,
I'll take that as an amendment.
whatever that might be. I don't know, I'm not a math person, but
But come back to us with a third year option.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Then I'll second.
So is your intent that we absolutely must add that third year option? Or we just want conversation on it?
I want conversation. I want us to explore what other districts are doing in the way of a third-year option, other than pre-calc and calc.
If you agree to withdraw your second, I'll withdraw my motion in an understanding that at our next meeting, our principal will come back with a plan, including what happens if we may take the credit away, and what the option would be for filling that in the third year. And then we can vote on it in a much more educated and
I
right
will
way.
agree to that.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion and make a motion that this be further studied by the principal, and he will return to us at our next meeting with his proposal, a proposal on mathematics, removing, if we were to remove the credit in 8th grade, what we will do with it.
I'll second that.
Okay, do you have that mess?
I think
How about
so.
we just don't take action on it? Why not?
Yeah,
why have a
we just,
motion?
that's fair.
Because now that issue has been given, so we're asking him to go. do
Now we've
something.
got a motion in a second, so.
And it's, just to be clear, the motion is for the high school math to be further studied and principal present options for third year classes.
If we do not give credit for the,
If we do not give credit for it. Yep, okay, got it.
Other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Okay. Did you have something you wanted us to take action on, Sue?
Yes, well, a couple other comments. This whole legislative thing is just as messy as what we just discussed, or maybe more so. My phone is blowing up every day with all of this. I hope you all had a chance to hear Governor Evers' speech last night. He's declared this budget the year of the kid. And he talked about requesting $60 million more for the tech colleges, Jerry. I thought you'd like that. He highlighted the work of the UW campuses and is looking for increased funding there. For K-12, he talked about healthy meals for all, mental health services, clean drinking water for kids, releasing that $50 million for reading that the legislature has been hanging on to. He talked about $80 million for literacy coaches for reading. He called this the largest education budget in state history, and 60% reimbursement, I thought of Melissa, for special ed. And he talked about spendable increases for schools with no property tax increase. So that's one piece, and I did update you as much as I could before I sent this to Kaylee for printing. But in the meantime, the federal funding for Wisconsin schools is getting a lot of discussion. For the 24-25 school year, Wisconsin is receiving $838 million plus in federal funding. That does not include the school meal funding or the Pell Grant funding for kids going to college. So there's more than $1 billion in federal funding at stake for Wisconsin, depending upon what happens in Washington. And lots and lots of concern about what's going on there, and it changes daily. Also,
I actually don't have so much concern about that. I think it would be great for education to come back to the States, because we're 40th of our 40 countries, we're 40th.
Who's going to make up that difference in funding?
Well, the money's going to come to the States, and the States figure it out.
yeah.
And that,
There's no guarantee.
no,
I mean, if, right now, there's a big freeze on federal funding.
yes. Our Head Start program with CISA has finally been able to get money, but for a while they couldn't.
Just think how much money there is for the 3 million people over 110 that are getting Social Security.
Yes.
Well, the challenge, right, is you brought up last meeting. We have the highest per pupil cost in the world, and we're 40th. That might be interesting discussion to have. Why are we spending so much more than everybody else, but our outcomes are so much worse? That's a discussion that I don't know if people are having. I just saw it.
What, you know, this Wauwatosa School Board resolution, you know, what is gonna, I read through this whole thing and what, I guess I'm wondering what kind of teeth that actually has.
Well, I don't know what kind of teeth anything has.
That's a guarantee, I think.
But if you don't play, you can't win.
That's right.
And this is something that WASB is really encouraging school districts to do, to make our voices heard.
Right.
You saw what happened in yesterday's election.
I did.
With the state superintendent.
Yes, I did.
And we'll see where that goes.
Yep.
But remember, we're all in the public school business here.
Right.
And this is one way, you know, what have we got to lose by doing this? And if there's a possibility we can gain something on behalf of our kids.
Right. I just wondered, I mean, Wauwatosa was the only school district that came forward.
Well, so far,
Yeah.
yes. They're the ones that kicked this off.
Right.
And then WASB has picked it up and encouraged other districts to do the same. So I am presenting this if this is something this board would like to do.
Right. I think we should keep this example for sure. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm just wondering.
And I certainly would be willing to work on crafting something with, along with Randy and with Tasha for some numbers, so, and then get it out to everybody here for your review.
Not to be a dead horse, but what needs to be done politically is the teacher or the school or the association needs to form alliances outside of the world of education. Like the tech schools form alliances with the small businesses and industries. If I need whatever's, they help us go to their legislators and say, you need to give them more money to keep my business going. Education, it looks like it from a tunnel point of view, as opposed to we need to have allies on all sides of the spectrum working with us. For no one's against education, so therefore you need to form alliances outside of the education bailiwick, and that's
It's
hard to do.
interesting you mentioned that, Jerry, because a week from tomorrow, I'm going to Madison to meet with a group of educational groups and a group of legislators, and the whole focus is on funding our schools adequately so we can provide a workforce that meets Wisconsin's needs. So it fits right in with what you're saying. So I guess
So do we want to do anything similar to this resolution? Kind of need to keep moving here. Is this board interested in?
I mean, I think Sue is correct in saying that more school districts that do something like Wauwatosa did, maybe gets a message across more than what we've been doing right now. I mean, our district has a chair of the education committee.
Yes.
Well, more pressure, I guess, you can put on that person. Probably, hopefully, be representing our school district.
Is that a motion?
You want a subcommittee or something? To develop a legislative.
Because I think my caution is the research that goes into it. So some of the discussion, I think, that the more tax dollars that go to Madison, right, the less we get, right? Sevastopol gets no federal funding, no state funding. So when we do for a referendum, which we don't like, but when we do a referendum, we tell our taxpayers all that money is value added to their community. You send it to Madison, it goes to the southern other schools. So it's a complicated good thing, and that's even, you know, the person you referred to in our county, he led that blue ribbon panel and trying to get some, and that didn't go very far. So my point is, there should be some rigorous research in what this message would say, and that's a commitment, right?
Well, I think.
20 years ago, when I came on the school board,
Is real key.
Yeah.
We're getting 30%
Right.
approximately now, and if we could get 60%, that would really help our.
For the special ed?
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that aspect, but.
That's what this is.
Well, and that certainly is a point that could be made in the resolution.
So I mean, that's what the Wauwatosa resolution is all about, is the 90% reimbursement on special education, special ed fund.
Just a quick reminder, we have to backfill our special education out of our general fund significantly every year.
Yes.
And so if there was something that we as a school district could get behind, would be absolutely a bigger return on our special education investment. This year, for every dollar spent, we get 30 cents. So what Wauwatosa is asking is that for every dollar, we would get 90 cents. That would significantly help us to be able to maintain our programs, our staff, and our buildings as we get out into year 4, when we don't know what inflation is going to look like. We're unsure of what student population is going to look like. So it would just really help us level that budget.
To clarify, it's specifically focused on that item, period, versus expanding to budget. I mean, we talk school funding variables all over the place throughout the year. So I think the special ed area is, that makes sense.
Well, and it's up to this group, what you want to do.
I move that we form a committee to develop a legislative advocacy resolution directed at special ed funding.
One second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Sue said you would,
I would be interested.
you said, Sue, you said,
I can work with Jake and Brandy.
I mean, it's not like we're reinventing some kind of new legislation.
great.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else,
Wauwatosa.
if anybody else
Would
has
you just
an
back it,
interest in
endorse
that.
what they're doing, and recommending?
Well, put some of our numbers in it. I think put some of our numbers in it, and the burden that this community is doing for the
Reinvent
good
the
reason,
wheel.
but, you know.
Okay, we're gonna keep going here.
Okay.
We've got a bid for storage building doors. This is the red shed out by the football field. Is that
Move
correct?
to approve the bid for upgrades to the door of storage building.
Questions or discussion?
I will say, we talked about this in the Building Grounds Committee, sorry we didn't status that. We're just refreshing that, it's a good bid, so that was something we missed in our earlier.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The insurance provider platform.
Yes. In your packet, you have information regarding a change in the insurance provider of COBRA coverage, HRAs, HSAs, and flexible spending accounts. I'm recommending that we change our provider to Employee Benefits Corporation from TASC for COBRA, FSAs, and HRAs. COBRA is actually currently provided by Employee Benefits Corp., but FSAs are provided by TASC, and HRAs are provided by Diversified Benefits. And then I would also recommend that the district allow employees to open HSAs at their preferred institution. That takes it out of the district's hands. They'd still be able to use payroll deduction. And the district would still run all of those transfers on the behalf of staff. But we wouldn't have to manage the open and close of accounts.
HSAs came out after I retired, so help me understand. So if I take money out of my HSA, you said to their institution of choice, I mean to their bank or wherever they want to put it in?
Yep.
Okay, I got you.
The bank account would still be qualified as their HSA account.
I understand, okay.
And then to me, it's a no-brainer because the cost goes down.
Yep.
Is there some hidden pain into something that's coming? That's why.
No, the task is the pain. It will save me, I think, hours of time.
Yeah.
Task has been very difficult.
So it's easier for you and it's cost us less money.
Yep.
How specific do we want the motion? Is it to prove the change, or do we want what all the changes are in the motion?
I think you can just
I
approve
can,
the change.
I'll just move that we recommend.
As recommended.
Second, I move that we accept the recommendation of our chief financial officer.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for doing the research on that. Then we have the student board representative.
So policy committee met and has had a conversation since the beginning of the year. You have a bylaw that allows us to have a student representative. It's a practice that you've had in the past, and it's one that policy committee would like to bring back forth to the board for the 25-26 school year moving forward. What you have in front of it is the application. What we're looking for is one junior, one senior in good academic standing, demonstrating high-quality leadership, would put together the rationale for why they want to be a board member. They have to be committed to our third Wednesday every month. They also have to be committed to a pre-board meeting, just much like I meet with the board president. I would meet with these two individual students to discuss the issues that we have so that they can be engaged in the conversations that are relevant to them, much like the one tonight that we were talking about whether or not we have an algebra credit at 8th grade or not. That's a prime example of what the students would be at the board for. It is not intended for them to showcase the activities that they are doing. That's what our principal reports already do. So really giving them an opportunity to understand policy governance, the roles and responsibilities of a board member, and obviously they're a non-voting member, and they also would not participate in any closed sessions. But I'd like to see move this forward. I've talked to both NHS and to Mr. Schaefer, help me, NHS and our student leadership council group. Both leaders of those organizations are interested. I also had an opportunity to talk to several students who are on those, and they thought it was a great idea to bring it forward. So,
My only question is, was there a discussion on a year versus like a semester? Because I mean, you're committing a year. Just curious what that discussion went. If it was a semester, you get more. And a year's a big commitment. I'm just curious if there was.
didn't have that conversation.
I would throw out an idea that they do not have to attend the June, July, and August meeting because it's more important for them to spend quality time with their family and friends and all that stuff.
Yeah, I was just assuming they'd be here for the school year.
Okay, but that's the definition.
Seems like a good idea.
I like the student engagement part of it, because we need to hear from the kids.
Is there a motion?
I would so move that we move forward with the student representative policy application as presented.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have the first and second reading of a number of policies with those technical changes that Jerry talked about. Is there a motion to approve?
I would move to approve the first and second reading of technical change policies for 34.1 policy committee recommendations of revised policies.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have those first reading of policies. Is there a motion on that?
I would move to approve the first reading of policies for 34.1 and Title IX policy committee recommendations.
Second.
Are there questions or discussion on any of those?
Well, the one on the fund balance, we've changed it now to 25 to 32.
Yes.
Okay. And the
mean, we had it at 30%, now we're lowering it to 25.
No, we're going to 33, I think.
I mean, the range, it was given a range of 25 to 33%.
Correct, because we are not within policy currently. So what our goal is to get us in policy and then ultimately start to increase our fund balance, but due to.
What happens if we're not in policy? It's not law, I mean, right? It's setting, I mean, we're accomplishing both, because if you go 25 to 33, then we don't need to do anything.
Right.
When you set the policy at 30 and we're not in policy, no one goes to jail, it's just a policy. And then we work towards it, right? I mean, it's the semantics and the rules of it.
It is.
And if we give them the range, then we're actually not changing anything.
But it is noted in your financial statements if you're in violation of your policy.
Okay,
The policies are guides.
but what happens with that?
It may affect your bond rating if you go out for,
But our actual percentage of our fund balance would affect our bond rating far more than the policy words.
You're right. Yep.
I mean.
Yep, you're right, but if you're in violation of your policy and you're doing nothing about it,
We can change that every time we do a
it's
policy.
concerned.
That's right.
We can do it every 6 months.
If it affects our bond rating, it changes the policy, but
Tell me we gotta
the
change the
actual
policy.
numbers are more critical. And we could actually have a corollary in that assessment that we have it this way, because we're driving it from 25, because of all their past recommendations were 25, by the way, to now we're driving it to 33 based on not having to do short-term borrowing. So that would probably drive a financial community to respect us even more, because we know what we're talking about for once. But
Sorry.
David, we're gonna miss you.
no,
We have a motion and a second. I think Sue made a motion on the
Yes.
first.
Yeah.
I said,
Did we have a second?
Keep
Yes.
the second.
Okay. If there are no other questions or discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. That concludes our regular business. I will take a motion to convene to executive session.
I'll make a motion to convene into executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried at 7:57 PM. We'll take
Position for 25, 26.
Second.
question to discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then we'll go to the track, high school assistant track coach.
Approve the hiring of Shelley Cook Bath for the high school assistant track coach.
Second.
Question to discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Jeff, are you getting, you have those?
Yep, I wrote them down before.
Then we'll go to the custodian.
I would move to approve the hiring of Patty Schmidt for the custodial position.
Second.
Questions and discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And then the contracts. I guess we would approve contracts as presented with compensation to be determined at a later time. Somebody want to make that motion?
Move to approve the administrative contracts as presented, with salaries being established at a later date.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I will prepare the superintendent evaluation summary and send it to you all for review. That would conclude our business, our future meetings. We have a regular meeting on March 19th. And Finance Committee on April 2nd. Do we think we need to schedule a meeting to confer? I don't think there have been any requests to confer, have there?
No, my intent would be that we would have one after we get the job description, so that we can start to look into there. My only ask is my contract.
Oh,
Motion to
approve the superintendent's contract?
Oh,
I was just gonna roll you
We
in.
should go back in the closed section on that one.
You do that one separate?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I took it under, no,
Make a motion to approve superintendent contract as presented.
Second.
Second.
questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
See, we got to improve our communication.
Then I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.